Welcome to a brand new series on the Cutter Historical Degrassi page. Today we look at dissecting the Rick Murray storyline. In this 10-part series, we will dissect things about Rick Murray and the people around him. Part 1 is how we got here. Rick and Terry from season 3. To explain things, here's some stuff. This is Terry McGregor, a minor character or secondary character, if you will, in the Degrassi Next Generation field. She was introduced in season 1 as a girl who was self-conscious about her looks. She ended up getting drunk before a dance because she was trying to fix her self-control issues. She had a dad, but no mom. Well, her mom died in an accident that she explained in season 2 finale when talking to Craig that she died somehow, and that Terry's dad actually interrupted Terry at a birthday party, saying that the horrible news, and Terry went home even though she wanted to play pin the tail on the donkey. Terry is portrayed as basically being a follower of Paige, someone that Paige regularly pushes around, and not more so than in season 2 when Paige basically forces Terry to choose between her and Ashley. As we all should know, Ashley in season 1's finale, Jagged Little Pill, actually ended up taking ecstasy and making an ass of herself. Basically, she tries to apologize for everything, but basically, it falls on deaf ears. Basically, Paige outs Ashley and basically says that no one is to be friends with Ashley. Ashley turns scoff and basically wants to be with Jimmy, but Jimmy likes the old Ashley instead of the new Ashley, and Ashley doesn't like the fact that Jimmy says that, said all that. So anyway, Terry was basically trying to find love and all that. One good point about Terry in season 2 was that she actually got a job as a plus-size model and actually waived her check at an ice cream vendor, basically saying that she makes a lot more money. How much money do you make? And all that. She got sassed by the ice cream vendor before, but she sassed him back. So anyway, Terry in season 3 still hadn't found true love and all that. But then along came somebody that she thought she was in love with, but unfortunately, we grow to find out it wasn't that way. Along comes a man by the name of Rick Murray, and Rick was introduced in season 3. He did not appear in the first few seasons. Rick Murray was considering himself a loner and very shy, so he decides to take roses to Terry's locker and show his affection for her. Basically, trying to get a girlfriend and all that. Terry and Rick hit it off, but things started to sputter very fast. So throughout those scenes, there's basically a storyline, and the storyline is that Jimmy is actually the director of a play, and Terry is the female lead. Of course, Rick doesn't like it. He's a bit uneasy about it, mostly because of the fact that, he's thinking that Jimmy may have eyes for Terry. And of course, Rick ends up being an assistant. So Rick tries his best to help Terry with the situation, but it doesn't work out that way. And basically, he's kind of jealous of Jimmy. You can't blame Rick because obviously, with Jimmy and Terry being alone and being the fact that Rick wanted a steady girlfriend, you got to realize that things have to happen for a reason. Unfortunately, Rick decides to give tips to Terry and basically talk to Terry and says how she's special and all that. Unfortunately, it makes her laughing stock. She talks to Rick about it. Rick is basically angry, saying that what you did was wrong and how dare you. And then basically he confronts Terry outside the school and says, I'm waiting for you. And basically Hazel and Terry had a fight over how Rick should be handled. And basically Rick is upset that Hazel and Paige are getting to her. So basically he says to her, don't go anywhere near Hazel and Paige after school. But then he pushes her. That's the last straw. And goodbye, Rick. You're doomed. So anyway, Terry breaks off with Rick, rightfully so. And then somehow she gets back together. So how we're going to dissect this is simple. Rick and Terry are still in the same acting class. and they do trust exercises. So one has to fall to the other. Unfortunately, Rick and Terry are paired up, and it was just for the art and all that, nothing else. So basically, everything worked out, and Rick basically seemed apologetic towards what he did to Terry and tells her that. And Terry ends up going on that road trip with Paige and them, as we saw in that small part. So basically, what ends up happening is that Terry wants to bring Rick. Of course, everyone is worried. Paige, Spinner, Hazel, and Jimmy are worried about Rick, but they decide to keep an eyeball on Terry. Rick is upset over how Paige perceives him and walks off. Terry walks off with Rick, and that seems to be a little bit off in a sense. So anyway, Rick and Terry talk and all that, and Rick says that Paige doesn't believe me. Terry says, that's just Paige being Paige. Rick is obviously upset, thinking that Terry is choosing Paige's stuff over him. So again, he pushes her for the second time, and unfortunately, it's more brutal as she hits her head on a rock. Rick doesn't know what to do. Paige and Spinner then find out what happened to Terry, and then they find Rick cradling Terry and Rick running away. It's like, what the heck? And then Paige and Spinner call 911 and all that. Now, of course, you got to realize that, Rick left the scene and all that. He didn't care to explain himself. So in the next group of clips, we basically talk about how Spinner and Paige are basically angry that Rick's getting off scot-free. And we get some talk about Terry's dad and his feeling. Okay, so in those scenes, basically, it was the aftermath. It was like, Terry's in the hospital in a coma. What can we do? Spinner and Paige have different opinions on how to handle it. Spinner wants Rick to pay for what he did to Terry. And basically, you got to agree with that. Because, Spinner basically is upset that, Rick could get away with everything. Simpson said, the details are minor. We can't really talk about them. But what do they really know, huh? What do they really know? I don't know. But anyway, what ends up happening is that Rick seems to get off scot-free, and they can't find Rick anywhere. So anyway, Paige and Spinner have their talks with each other. And basically what ends up happening is that they talk to Terry's dad, and Terry's dad blows some steam, saying that if you knew something, why didn't you say something? All that. He was always so sweet and charming, but how did I not see that? Basically, he blows up at Paige and Spinner. A grieving parent will do that to you. When you realize what can happen, it's basically like they're worried about something. But regardless of the situation at hand, we also got to realize that Rick somehow got away with it. That's how they feel about it. So anyway, Spinner confronts Rick, saying that, what are you doing? She's in the hospital. Why aren't you there with her? Rick has a box of his stuff. His mom brings it out and says, stay away from my son. Now, that part actually raises a major question. For me, it's like, oh, well, she knows about Rick hurting Terry and all that somehow, and then basically pulled him out of school for Rick's protection. But it could be something else. Is it possible, and this could be an unpopular opinion, but could it be possible that Rick lied to his parents about what happened? Because as we all know, Rick had hurt Terry and put her in a coma. Spinner and Paige knows that. So what ends up happening is that, Spinner and Paige want justice for Terry and all that. And of course, Rick got pulled out of school. But could Rick have lied to his parents and said something different than what really happened? Because he could have manipulated his parents and basically said that I did something wrong and the school's going to go after me. And then his mom, being the rock she is, basically wants to protect him and pulls him out of school. So you got to realize that there's a lot going on with this situation. Terry, after the coma thing, we only see her one more time in an episode, and that's when Spinner, Paige, and Ashley visited her in the hospital, and then basically she got written off. Terry McGregor was no more. She went to a private school in season 4. I guess rightfully so, because, Degrassi giving her nightmares. And, what about Rick? Does Rick come back? We actually never see Rick in season 3, and everyone assumes, oh, Rick is gone. That was just a short storyline just to get rid of Terry. But that wasn't the end of it. Oh no, this is just the first chapter of a 10-chapter journey. So, the big question marks are that will we ever see Rick again? Will Terry ever be mentioned again or seen in some capacity? Will other students get angry with the Rick Murray situation? Will there be hell to pay for everybody and anybody involved? There will be a time of day of reckoning. Season 4 brought that to fruition.